Melania Trump's movie officially debuted at the White House on the heels of the apparent execution of a nurse by ICE agents, and I have to discuss the backlash and the humiliating disaster that is looming over the film's run coming up next. Hello, I'm Dan, and if you're new to Occupy Democrats, please hit that subscribe button to see all of our reports about the lawlessness and shame that Donald Trump and those around him bring to the United States. Let's begin with context from select news outlets, and then I'll have the most damning reactions to the White House screening by members of Congress, as reported by the Washington Post. First up is the Daily Beast reporting on the White House setting, an odd assembly of characters in attendance. Melania's $75 million movie premiered in a makeshift theater. Amazon's $75 million documentary about First Lady Melania Trump had its first private screening in a makeshift theater at the White House on Saturday evening. The White House Family Theater, a 40-seater where presidents have traditionally screened movies, was demolished in October to make way for Trump's gaudy new $400 million ballroom. Other guests reportedly in attendance included Queen Rania of Jordan, Apple CEO Tim Cook, former boxer Mike Tyson, and self-help coach Tony Robbins. The screening reportedly took place in the East Wing of the White House in a screening room cobbled together by Melania herself with state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment overseen by Ratner. No expense was spared to make up for the last-minute location, with framed souvenir movie tickets and commemorative popcorn boxes specially printed for the occasion. And wealthofgeeks.com focused on the looming financial disaster the film will be and Trump's coercion of Jeff Bezos. Tim Cook, Andy Jassy, and Lisa Su showed up for VIP screening of Melania Trump's movie. The film is still expected to bomb. The $75 million question. Amazon paid $40 million for the rights to Melania. According to Puck's Matthew Baloney, the studio has spent an additional $35 million on marketing. Billboards across major cities, TV spots, and radio ads. Total investment, $75 million.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm excited about the movie. I hope to go see it this weekend. But first, let's talk about some of the news that's happening around our country. And let's start with what's happening in Minnesota. There are these protests, there are these shootings. The world is divided. There's pressure on both sides. You have talked a lot about coming together and being respectful. And your husband yesterday had a way to maybe bring some calmness to that area, contacting the governor, contacting the mayor, hopefully working together. What is your message for America about unifying both sides?
We need to unify. I'm calling for unity. I know my husband, the president, had a great call yesterday with the governor and the mayor, and they're working together to make it peaceful and without riots. I'm against the violence, so if we protest in peace. And we need to unify in these times.
Mm-hmm. Think that's embarrassing? Stick around. The sequel to Melania might just be a divorce documentary. And how many of us would watch that? But I digress. It's no big secret that Melania Trump is very uncomfortable with her duties as First Lady, and to the fact that she has to face questions about her husband's policies, including those that are violating civil rights and killing Americans. The fact that she has to address these questions about Donald isn't exactly what she wants to talk about. And now it just got even worse. Speaking on the Daily Beast podcast last night, Trump biographer Michael Wolff spilled some major revelations about how Melania Trump is furious that her new, very expensive documentary is expected to tank critically and commercially. Take a look.
And remember, and this is really...
As Donald and Melania Trump take time off from their White House duties to make a last-minute push to get butts in seats for a very dubious documentary, the dirt is being dished on the chaos and disgust that went into making of the film, and I have it all for you next. Hello, I'm Dan, and welcome to Occupy Democrats. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button to get all of our videos covering the seedy shenanigans by the Trump grift machine. Let's begin with something you won't see in the Melania film. The person who launched something called Be Best during her first stint as First Lady was not at her best on this particular day. Remember the blatant plagiarism she was busted for?
So many of the same values.
That you work hard for what you want.
You work hard for what you want.
That your word is your bond.
That your word is your bond. That you do what you say you're going to do. That you treat people
with respect.
With dignity and respect, even if you don't know them, and even if you don't agree with them.
That is
and Barack and I
continue to pass
set
along
out to
our
build
son.
lives guided
And we
by
need
these
to pass
values and to
those
pass them on
lessons
to the next generation,
on
because
to the many
we want our
generations
children
to
and
follow.
all
Because
children
we want
in this
our
nation
children in
to know
this
that the
nation
only
to know
limit to the height
that
of your
the only
achievements is
limit
the
to
reach
your
of your dreams
achievements
and your
is the
willingness
strength
to work hard
of your
for them.
dreams and your willingness to work for them.
And speaking of work, she is working hard today to avoid a film flop. Check out her appearance on Fox, and you're going to have to work hard to stay awake through her very uncompelling description. And on the other side, I'll have the very compelling dirt that has been exposed about the making of the movie.
This story was never told before. So the audience will see me, how I manage my business, my philanthropy.
Joining us now, and what timing today, Colorado's Secretary of State and Chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, Jenna Griswold. Really good to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Just first off, this is something I was curious about earlier. States run their own elections. What is the FBI doing in a state elections office?
Well, I think this is unprecedented. I know as much information as you know, as Americans know right now. But if this does turn out to be just one more part of Trump's retribution and attempts to rewrite 2020, I think that's deeply disturbing to the entire country.
There is just kind of like an unknown amount of people don't know quite how concerned they should be about 2026 and 2028, but 2026 is coming up first. And what the administration might do. If Donald Trump is going back and trying to say, I won in 2020 and I need to rewrite history, even though he did not, if he's willing to do that, there are real questions about what he's willing to do if he loses the House or the Senate or both in 2026. What are you preparing for?
We're preparing for everything. But I'll tell you, we were preparing for everything in 2020 also. So all types of contingencies. We actually just went to our legislature this week to ask for more resources. And we've been working with both our attorney general and the governor on all types of contingencies. I will say Trump has made our elections less safe since taking office the second time. He's disbanded the FBI and DHS's work on securing our elections from foreign adversaries. He's fired all the people, for the most part, we used to work with in the federal government on security. And he's
the CISA folks.
The CISA folks, exactly. They would provide great services to secretaries of state and to the counties. In Colorado, we're trying to pick up as many of the services as possible. But we've seen Trump weaponize the DOJ to go after political opponents. We'll see if that's what's happening right now in Fulton County. And just like you, I don't know what's going to happen in 2026.
In moments of national tension, leadership decisions are often shaped not only by policy goals, but by public perception. When events unfold rapidly and images circulate widely, leaders are forced to assess not just what is happening, but how it is being understood. In recent weeks, such a moment emerged following a fatal confrontation during a large federal enforcement operation, prompting internal reassessment at the highest levels. Initial official messaging focused on portraying the encounter as a response to a perceived threat. Visuals and statements emphasized the presence of a legally owned firearm and framed the situation as one involving imminent danger. These early descriptions were intended to justify enforcement actions and maintain public confidence in operational decisions. However, as video footage and independent reporting became more widely viewed, the narrative began to shift. Clips of the encounter raised questions about timing, posture, and the sequence of events leading up to the fatal outcome. Rather than calming concerns, the growing body of footage intensified scrutiny and public unease. Inside leadership circles, reactions evolved. According to individuals familiar with internal discussions, the images and reports created discomfort. The concern was not solely about legality or authority, but about disorder and perception. Leadership has long viewed visible chaos as corrosive to public trust, particularly when it unfolds on a national stage. While the underlying enforcement strategy remained a priority, it became increasingly clear that the presentation of that strategy required adjustment. The issue was no longer whether enforcement would continue, but how it would be seen. Optics, messaging, and leadership presence became central considerations. By the end of that week, a decision was made to recalibrate. This did not involve abandoning core objectives, but rather resetting the tone. Internally, this shift was described as preserving the mission while changing the script. The goal was to reduce visible confrontation without reversing enforcement commitments. This recalibration was facilitated by significant institutional resources already allocated to enforcement efforts. Recent legislation had expanded funding for detention facilities, personnel recruitment, and operational capacity. With these resources secured, leadership felt confident that enforcement could proceed even as surface-level tactics were adjusted. The decision-making process was shaped by multiple pressures. Public reaction to the fatalities was strong and emotional. Approval ratings related to enforcement tactics showed signs of decline. Calls for resignations and leadership changes grew louder. Together, these factors created urgency for visible action. At the same time, leadership was mindful of long-term commitments. Enforcement promises made earlier remained central to credibility. Any appearance of retreat risked undermining confidence among supporters of strict enforcement. The challenge, therefore, was to project steadiness while acknowledging public concern. Observers note that this balance between firmness and flexibility is a recurring theme in governance. When authority is exercised too rigidly, it can provoke backlash. When it appears inconsistent, it can invite doubt. Adjusting optics becomes a way to navigate this tension without altering policy substance. In practical terms, the reset involved changes in personnel visibility, messaging tone, and public engagement. Enforcement leadership on the ground was reshuffled. Statements emphasized investigation, review, and calm. Language shifted away from confrontation and toward order and stability. This approach reflected an understanding that legitimacy depends not only on power but on acceptance. Enforcement actions carried out without public trust can become counterproductive, generating resistance rather than compliance. Leaders increasingly recognize that authority must be seen as measured, not merely forceful. The episode also highlighted the growing influence of real-time documentation. In an era where nearly every encounter can be recorded and shared instantly, traditional messaging strategies face new challenges. Official narratives are no longer received in isolation. They are compared directly against raw footage. As a result, leadership must account for a more skeptical and visually informed public. Decisions about language, framing, and response timing are scrutinized alongside the actions themselves. Optics are no longer secondary. They are integral to governance. Despite the recalibration, enforcement operations continue. Resources remain deployed. Objectives remain unchanged. What has shifted is the recognition that visible escalation carries costs that can outweigh short-term gains. Critics argue that adjusting optics without addressing underlying practices is insufficient. Supporters counter that maintaining order requires firmness, and that leadership has already demonstrated willingness to respond. This debate reflects broader divisions about enforcement, authority, and accountability. What is clear is that the moment marked a turning point in presentation. Leadership acknowledged, implicitly, that the situation demanded a different approach. Not a reversal, but a refinement. In the weeks ahead, the effectiveness of this reset will be measured by several factors: the absence of further high-profile incidents, the tone of public discourse, and the outcome of ongoing investigations. Each will influence whether trust can be stabilized. The episode serves as a reminder that governance is not static. It is shaped by events, perception, and response. Leaders must continually assess how actions resonate beyond their immediate intent. In complex environments, success is rarely defined by force alone. It depends on legitimacy, clarity, and restraint. The decision to reset optics reflects an awareness of these realities. Ultimately, this moment underscores a fundamental truth of leadership. Power must be exercised in a way that maintains order without eroding trust.